All right. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Sarthi's Inflection Masterclass event. We have three really amazing speakers today with a lot of expertise in the topics that we're going to tell them right now, and I'll go ahead and describe them in a bit. Just for the speakers and for everyone over here, we have startups over here that are from the US and from India as well, with majority of them being from India as of now, given the time constraints. So let me go ahead and introduce the speakers, and then we can have Pradeep Yuvraj start the session with his talk. So first up, we have Pradeep Yuvraj, presentation strategist and CEO of Presentim. It's a firm known for crafting investor-winning pitch decks that help founders turn ideas into funded ventures. He's also a business storytelling coach, training founders and leaders to communicate with clarity, conviction, and confidence. Serial entrepreneur himself, he has seen both sides of the journey. He has the three failures and then three successful exits as well before founding Presentim. And currently, he's serving as the vice president of Thai Coimbatore, and he continues to champion entrepreneurship and mentor emerging startups. Welcome, Pradeep. I hope I spelled and pronounced everything correctly. Please correct me if there's anything wrong for everyone. Yeah,
Absolutely right. Absolutely right, Pritam. Thank you.
perfect. Thank you. Our second speaker is Arjun Bala, an IIT Bombay alumnus and a patent attorney with over 21 years of experience in building international patent portfolios. He is the founder of MetaAge, a specialized intellectual property firm that acts as an extended IP department for technology companies with R&D teams in Bangalore and across the globe as well. And so Arjun and his team specialize in deep tech technology patents, especially in the US and across domains like computer vision, robotics, and AI. He also collaborates with Kernel Labs. It's a deep tech incubator in Seattle that helps startups protect their cutting edge innovation. And welcome, Arjun. I hope the pronunciations were correct. All good?
All good, thanks.
Perfect. Thank you. And our third and final speaker for today is Rajneesh Pal. He's a corporate lawyer, strategic advisor, as well as a startup mentor. He's the director at IPDXTR, helping founders turn intellectual property into a strategic asset, and a partner at Link Juris Advisors, advising venture capital, private equity, and high growth companies on complex deals. He also mentors early stage startups and serves as a strategic advisor at Her Second Innings, driving strategy and growth for women professionals. Welcome, Rajneesh.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Welcome.
Yeah. And then over to you, Pradeep. I think you will be the first one to go and start on this event. Then we would head over to
Super.
and then Rajneesh.
So
And
I have like 5 hours, right, for my talk?
well, you have 30 minutes in total, 20 minutes for presentation.
Sorry, I thought you had mailed me. It was 5 hours. As the first speaker, I get the opportunity, right? Now,
I would
Rajneesh and
love to
Arjun
hear
are
you
like
for
looking
five
at the
hours.
clock. Wonderful. Good morning, good evening, everyone. Salam alaikum, sat sri akal, wherever you're joining from. My name is Pradeep Yuvraj, and I would request Siriak, Devansh, Pranav, Joseph, Pradeep, Chandramohan, Zoom user, Hamsavardhan, Ryan, Aditya, Anisa, Vinay to put your videos on. Don't worry if you have not taken a shower, neither have I, so it's perfectly fine. Storytelling is all about people and looking at one another, so it's better that we all look at faces. Don't bother about anything happening in your background. I think Zoom helps us look into people's real lives, right? And Girish, as a humble request, if you could remove any note takers that are there, AI note takers, without the actual person being here. As a teacher, I would prefer that. If the person is here, then the note taker is great. But if the person is not there, please take off the note taker. So let's get started with my 30 minutes. Before we start, I'm going to put on some music. I want all of you to forget everything that's troubling you in your life. Okay, whether it's your neighbor's wife who has run away or your cat who's missing, don't worry, they will all be back. I'm going to put on some music. I want you to close your eyes, forget everything that's troubling you, and just relax. Can Arjun give me a thumbs up if you're able to hear the audio? Wonderful. Close your eyes, deep breaths, relax. Nothing more, nothing less.
அக்னி குஞ்சொன்று கண்டேன் அக்னி குஞ்சொன்று கண்டேன் அங்கொரு காட்டிலோர் அதை அங்கொரு ஒரு காட்டிலோர் பொந்திடை வைத்தேன் அக்னி குஞ்சொன்று கண்டேன் அதை அங்கொரு காட்டிலோர் பொந்திடை வைத்தேன் வெந்து தணிந்தது காடு வெந்து தணிந்தது காடு தழல் வீரத்தில் குன்றென்றும் மூப்பென்றும் உண்டோ.
Wonderful. Please open your eyes. Good morning to all of you in India and good evening to everyone in America. I hope you're woken up. I didn't put you to sleep. There are two reasons why I play this song almost as a prefix to every session that I do. Reason number one is we are all running a very fast life, right? We are constantly expected to be running, doing something. And especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're gone, right? The world expects you to be like on 24/7. You're supposed to be working. But what I've realized in life is at many points of life, we have to take a pause, a deep breath, and step back and look at our own life as a third person. Why? Because when I'm running, it's very difficult for me to judge whether I'm on the right track or no. I would want the next 20 minutes that you and I spend together to be that pause for all of us from the perspective of storytelling, of course, where I help each of you take a pause, step back, and look at your own life as a third person. So that if you're on the right track, great. If there's a wrong direction, time to do course correction. But more importantly, the reason why I play the song is the lyrics that you heard, which is in my mother tongue, Tamil. For those of you who are not aware, Tamil is the oldest spoken language in the world, older than any other language in the world. Its written dated history is 3,500 years old. And the song says, அக்னி குஞ்சொன்று கண்டேனது அங்கோர் காட்டிலோர் பொந்திரை வைத்தேன் வெந்து தனிந்தது காடுதலல் வீரத்தில் குஞ்சென்று மூப்பென்றும் உண்டோ. This poem was written in 1904 by a poet called Mahakavi Bhardiyar. He wrote this in the context of the Indian freedom struggle. Young Indians were scared of the British Empire because the British Empire was huge. It was, literally the empire, right? And young Indians were feeling that we are tiny speck in front of them. So he writes in the poem that I took a small spark of fire and I left it deep inside the forest. And the next day when I came back, what happened? The entire forest was burned down to ashes. And that is the power of the youth, is what he wrote, right? Because he said, a spark also looks like a tiny speck, but it has the power to burn down the entire forest. Metaphorically, my dear brothers and sisters, this spark represents the power of an idea. The idea that each of you has for your startup or for your company or for your portfolio company or whatever, that idea has the power to change the entire world. Metaphorically speaking, to burn down the entire forest. So if there's one takeaway from the 20 minutes that you spend with me, it is this, that in you, my dear entrepreneurs, you are empowered with the power to change the world. Keep fueling that spark with fuel and oxygen. And like what Sarthi Ventures does, all these sessions are nothing but the fuel and oxygen that can fuel your ideas. With that, let me get into my 20 minutes. Let me share my screen. Okay, here we go. Awesome. Let me put it on full screen and let me get this out as well. Rajesh, can you give me a thumbs up if you are able to see my slides and me side by side? Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rajesh. Thank you so much, Joseph, as well. Right? So the topic given to me was who wants to raise millions with the power of storytelling, right? That's what Girish and Pritham wanted me to talk about. Disclaimer, I strongly believe that money has nothing to do with storytelling. It's just a collateral damage of storytelling that you end up getting money, right? And what I'm going to do is unlock some very obvious elements. Everyone likes to call them secrets, but they're actually very, very obvious elements of the power of storytelling in the art of fundraising. So over the next 20 minutes, I will kind of take you through a journey where you understand some very basic things, which are very commonsensical, which sometimes we use, sometimes we forget because we all went to school and college. right? And there we lost our common sense. So how does that apply to storytelling and how does that apply to fundraising is what we will try to understand. At the end of the session, I promise to each of you with a money back guarantee that I will give you a very simple formula by which you can become at least 10x better at storytelling than what you are right now. Okay? Money back guarantee. Neither of you have paid me money, so there is no risk for me in that. Wonderful. So let me ask this to Joseph. Joseph Baliva. Am I pronouncing your name right?
Uh, yes. Hello.
Yeah, Joseph. The queen
Yes.
died and the king died. Okay? Did you feel anything, Joseph?
Not really.
No. Okay. Joseph,
Am I supposed
the
to?
queen died and the king died of severe heartbreak. Now, did you feel something, Joseph?
Yeah, a little bit, sure.
A little bit, right? So you were imagining a guy who's like full of beard and then drunken and on the streets, that his queen is dead and he's trying to die, right? So what happened, Joseph? In the first instant, I gave you a fact. The queen died, the king died. The second instant, I just added one small element, severe heartbreak. And what did it do? It made it into a story because facts tell and stories sell. If these two were two frames of a movie, you would end up going to the movie where the king has a heartbreak because you want your money to get something out of it, right? You don't want a fact for your money, you want a story for your money. So, number one, remember facts only tell, but stories are what sell, right? Number two, okay, let's do this with Anisha Libuya. Anisha, okay?
Yes.
So, two legs was on three legs, having one leg. Four legs came, snatched the one leg from two leg, and ran away. Two leg took the three leg, hit the four leg, and got the one leg back. Can you please repeat it?
No, that's confusing.
Confusing? Okay. So, two legged Anisa was sitting on a three legged stool, having a one leg of chicken. And then a four legged dog came and snatched the one leg of chicken from Anisa and ran. Anisa took the three legged stool, hit the four legged dog, and got the one leg back. Now repeat.
No, it's quite confusing again. So
But
too much detail about legs.
too much detail? I'll repeat again,
Mm.
right? Anisa, who's got two legs, was sitting on a three legged stool, having one leg of chicken. And then a dog comes and snatches the chicken and runs away. You take the stool and hit the dog and get your chicken back. Now, do you think you can tell it back? Yeah, Pritham says he can repeat it. Yeah, go ahead, Pritham. Go ahead, tell me.
No, no, no. Okay. I mean, yeah, I wasn't gonna say I was good, but two-leg Anisa was sitting on a three-leg stool, eating a
Right.
one-leg chicken, and a four-leg dog came and took away the
Absolutely,
one
right?
leg. Yeah.
So that's the power of story is that stories get transmitted very easily, right? And if I put it in as a visual, it becomes much more powerful, right? It is much more easier for Anisha and Pritham to share what they heard when I gave it in the form of a story. What do you want when you pitch to an investor? You want that investor to share what you spoke to 10 other investors, right? So sharing stories becomes easier for an investor, or sharing your pitch deck or sharing what your idea is when you enable them with a story. So stories spread easily and they get amplified as well. Number three, let's do this with Rajesh. Rajesh, the theory of relativity postulates that the speed of light in a vacuum is constant for all inertial observers, regardless of their relative velocity. This leads to the relativistic interdependence of space and time coordinates, a four-dimensional space-time continuum where simultaneity is relative, and phenomena such as time dilation and length contraction arise naturally. Can you please explain this to Arjun Bala, the patent attorney?
I think I'll just put it as if you understand the theory of relativity, I think I'll not explain
Okay,
anything further.
let me explain this to you in a different way, Rajesh. Okay, assume you had a twin. Okay, and your twin had the power to sit on the ray of light and go across the universe. And let's say he comes back after 10 years. You would have, Rajesh, grown 10 years older, but your twin would have grown older only by 1 day. And that is what theory of relativity says in the terms of time dilution. That time which you and I believe is continuous can actually be shortened. When a body gets the speed of light, it can actually go back in time. And that's the concept. Now, do you think you would be probably able to explain this to Arjun?
Yes, very easily
Right?
because it's with an example, you can
Right.
explain it
So
better.
stories, what do stories do? They help explain complex ideas in a very, very simple way. So that's the third thing that stories do. Okay. When Elon Musk started selling cars, did he say that I'm going to give you EV cars? No. He said, you're not buying cars, you're coming with me and changing the world. He used one of the powerful elements of story, which was that stories go and hit that part of the brain which usually takes decisions, the emotional part of the brain. We always take our decisions with the emotional part of the brain and justify that with the logical part of the brain. So Elon Musk used that emotional part that you wanted to be part of a revolution where you change the world and not the logical thing of buying an electric car. So that's the fourth thing that stories do. Bringing this to a little more real science, there was this experiment that was done in the late 70s where they put four guys on a bed and put probes on their brains. And they were trying to watch the patterns on the monitors. The patterns of each of these were different. Then they brought in Pritham, and Pritham was giving them a pitch presentation about some technical stuff. And the waveforms were all, very, very different. Then Girish came in and started telling the story of the Arabian Nights. And you know what happened? Within 10 seconds, the waveform of all the four guys was the same as the waveform of Girish, which means when you tell stories, you and your audience gets neurocoupled, which means everything that's happening in my mind is the same thing happening in the investor's mind when I'm pitching an idea in the form of a story. Isn't that wonderful? Right? What's going on in your mind is the same thing going on in their mind. And that's the power of story. The other power of story is something we call as mirror neurons, where in this science experiment, two scientists were trying to observe monkeys and their brain patterns. One day, when one of the scientists was peeling a banana, the monitor started lighting up. The area of the brain which was connected to peeling a banana in the monkey was lighting up, although the monkey was not peeling the banana. And from this, they deciphered that from stories, when people hear stories, the same neurons are triggered in the mind of the audience as the neurons in the mind of the teller. Let me give you an example. The sweet smell of soil after a heavy rain. Were you able to smell it a little bit now? Right? Because the neurons being triggered in my mind are the same neurons that are being triggered in your mind right now. So imagine the power of you as a startup, as a storyteller, when you have the control of the neurons being triggered in your investor's mind. Why did most of the girls in Pakistan realize that education is the only way forward for them? Because they got to hear the story of Malala, who said, I am Malala, and stood up in front of a terrorist. Malala could have gone and made 100 speeches that it's very important for girls, children to get educated. Probably no one would have cared. But the moment we all heard the story of standing up to a terrorist in a bus and getting shot and going into a coma, it elicited action. Stories have the power to elicit action. So now imagine you having the superpower of getting people to act upon what you're saying. Stories inspire. So based on this, how do we get a formula? So what are the building blocks of a good story is what we will understand. Number one, a good story always takes something very complex and makes it simple. Right? Any person could understand the example of a child sitting on a light beam and going across the universe. But even for most of us who are educated highly, we were not able to understand what the theory of relativity postulated. Stories make things simple, number one. Number two, stories make things concrete. What do we mean by concrete? If I can close my eyes and I can visualize what you are talking, my brain understands. If I cannot visualize what you're talking, my brain doesn't understand. I'll give you an example. 9.881 meters per second square. Adarsh? What's that, Adarsh? You're on mute, Adarsh, by the way. Okay, let me go to Abhishek probably. Abhishek, 9.81 meters per second square. What is that? Abhishek, you there?
That's the value of G, gravity.
G, gravity, right?
Yeah.
But many of us did not remember that right now. Why? Because it's an abstract concept. Can you see gravity? You can't. So
No.
what did our teacher do? She told us of the story of a gentleman who was sitting below an apple tree and the apple fell on him, right? So a concept that was abstract, which is 9.81 meters per second square, which did not have shape, size, color, was converted into something concrete through the form of a story. Stories make things concrete because the brain as a muscle over the last 200,000 years has evolved as a muscle that only understands concreteness. Number three, stories have an unexpected element always. Let's say, Arjun, Bala, you go to a movie, okay? Who's your favorite movie star?
Let's just say Shah Rukh Khan.
Shah Rukh Khan, wonderful. So Arjun, you go to a movie, you paid like $1,000 to watch the movie. Okay, Shah Rukh Khan is born. He goes to school, becomes school topper, goes to college, college topper, goes to work, highly paid, graduates, gets a performer award, retires, movie over. Do you think you got your money's worth?
No.
No, right? You'll want your money back. Rather,
Yeah.
if in the movie, when he graduated from college, a group of 10 aliens from Star Wars came and kidnapped him. And then he fought them and came back and he got the best employee award. Now, do you think your money had its worth?
Yeah.
Right?
I
Because
know.
there was something unexpected. The easiest way to grab attention in a world that is starved of attention is to break a pattern. Stories help break patterns because they can bring in the unexpected element. Today, when I started, you expect me to say, thank you, Girish Batra, thank you, Pritam Patil, for giving me this opportunity and giving me this opportunity to see all these wonderful people. And rather, what did I do? I put on a music, the least thing that you expected. And what happened? All your attention was on the call because I broke a pattern. Stories help break patterns by bringing in the unexpected. Stories bring in credibility. Why do all of us believe that hard work is good for us? Because when we were young, our grandmothers told us the story of a crow that was sitting on a pot which had very little water. And then the crow bought rocks and stones and put and brought the water level up and it drank the water. So the young child, the 5-year-old Pradeep, he listened to it from a source whom he trusted. And hence, Pradeep believed that hard work is right. Stories build in credibility. And that's the reason why many of us sometimes, not any of us on the call, but I'm sure there are a lot of people who fall for that email that comes from the Nigerian prince whose father has left him $20 million dollars and he wants to share and transfer those $20 million dollars to your bank account, right? Because he built a story around his father's death and how he went into exile and all that stuff. They build in credibility. Stories build in emotions. Why? Like I said, because the human brain takes decisions based on emotion and not decision based on logic. We take emotional decisions and then validate that emotional decision through logic. Let me give you an example so you may understand this. Let me ask this to Hamsavardhan. Hamsavardhan, can you unmute yourself? Hamsavardhan missing. Pradeep Kannan, can you unmute yourself probably? Yep.
Yeah, hi.
Okay, hi Pradeep. So Pradeep, what if I tell you that 70,200 Indian women die every year of cervical cancer, the only cancer that has a vaccine. And the vaccine is just $1,200, $10 is all that it costs to give the lady a vaccine and save her. And yet, 70,200 Indian women die every year. Did you feel bad hearing this, Pradeep?
Yeah,
Yeah. Did you
yeah.
feel bad enough that you want to go and start a company that will probably solve this problem? Maybe
No, I
no, right?
didn't. No, no, no. Yeah.
Pradeep, what if I tell you that every 8 minutes, one Indian woman dies of cervical cancer? Every 8 minutes, one Indian woman dies of cancer.
It is
Did you
making
feel a
me,
little more bad now? Yeah?
yeah, yeah.
But if you're good at mathematics, unlike me, Pradeep, you'll know that 60 divided by 8 multiplied by 24 hours in a day multiplied by 365 days in a year is equal to 70,200. I gave you the same number. So why did you feel worse? Because the second time when I said one Indian woman, subconsciously someone that you knew came to your mind and your relationship with that someone is emotional. And hence your emotions were triggered and you felt a little more bad. Mother Teresa famously said, "Show me the mass and I shall do nothing, but show me the one and I shall act." What she meant is, when you show me the one, I'm emotionally connected to that one person. I want to help that one person. But when you show me 10,000 people, I get overwhelmed. What can I do for 10,000 people? And I do nothing. Stories have the power to bring in emotions, like it happened with Joseph, right? He got emotional when he heard that the king died of heartburn. And finally, stories always have a structure. The structure is there is a normal life, and then suddenly there's a distortion in the normal life by the entry of a villain. In a startup world, that villain is nothing but the problem that each of you as a startup is solving. There's a normal life that your customer is leading, but the normal life has an abnormal villain, which is whatever you're solving. And then there's a hero, which is your product or your service or your company, which comes and overtakes the villain and then makes life happily ever after for Rajneesh and Arjun and Pradeep and Joseph and Abhishek. So stories always have like a square wave structure. Now, let me give you the formula. I get into a room, people are distracted. How do I grab attention? By doing the unexpected. I break a pattern with the unexpected, right? Now I want everyone in the room to understand. How do I make them understand? By making it simple enough that the person with the least intelligence is able to understand. Once they all understand, what do I want? I want them to explain. I want to explain to them because it's a new concept. My startup is a new company. It's a new product. It's a new technology that we're building. How do I explain? By making it concrete. Rather than telling people that I am an aggregator of meeting halls, I tell them that I am the Uber of meeting halls. What does Uber do? It aggregates cars. They don't own the cars. And I am in the business of meeting halls. So that's something that makes people it easily concrete for people. Then I want people to believe in me. How do I make people believe in me? By adding an element of credibility into the whole thing. Once they believe in me, when will they act? When there's an emotion, meaning comes in. When I add emotion. And finally, I deliver the whole thing so that they can take action in the form of a story structure. Now, let me put all these things together like this on the screen, right? I remove everything that's in white. This is left. I remove everything except the first letter. This is what is left. Can you see a pattern emerging, my dear friends? From these alphabets?
Success.
I'm sorry, yes, Arjun?
With success.
Absolutely. The formula for becoming better at storytelling is SUCCES. The next time you build a pitch deck, the next time you build an email, the next time you build a campaign, the next time you build a website, ask yourself, is it simple enough that a fifth grader can understand? Is there something unexpected that you're doing which no one else is doing? Is there something concrete that people are able to visualize the words that you're speaking? If they cannot visualize it, they don't understand it. Is there something credible? Are you sharing real life stories of people who have gone through the problem or where your product has solved it for them? Is there an emotional layer? An emotion is not an emotion of sadness alone. Fear is an emotion. Greed is an emotion. Joy is an emotion. Worry is an emotion. So, can you bring one of those emotions in your pitch deck so that your investors and your audience are able to go through it? And finally, can you package the whole thing in the form of a story structure? And with that, I come to my 20 minutes. If you want to grab these slides, take a scan of this QR code, fill in a form. My team will mail uh, mail the entire deck to you. You can have a look at it, share it with anyone you want. And my name is Pradeep Yuvraj. My LinkedIn is pradeep.yuvraj on LinkedIn. And with that, Preetham, my 20 minutes are getting over and I hand over to you.
Thank you. That was absolutely lovely, Pradeep. Thank you so much. We now open the floor up for any questions. Anyone has any questions? We've got a slot for 10 minutes of question and answers. So any questions for Pradeep?
I have a question.
Sure. Yes,
Yes,
Joseph.
Joseph.
I found difficulty relaying the most important aspect of what I'm doing. So what I'm doing is I created a platform that allows real estate agents to get paid when they give a referral to a mortgage broker. Normally it's illegal, but we actually created a legal workaround very meticulously, very carefully. But the thing is, I feel like if I emphasize that, people will think that it's a weak chain or weak link, and they might say, well, you need to get 47 different lawyers to assert that that is absolutely legal, and you need legal statements, and you need like, we can't do that as a startup. We've got our lawyer, they asserted it. So I haven't really, I think I may have even left the legal slide out at this point.
Right.
Because
very valid point, Joseph. I don't have an immediate answer to what you're asking for, but one of the ways that you could do, Joseph, is do some research and see if there is a similar example in another industry. Let's say, for example, in medical, okay, in pharma, right? On paper, it might be illegal for a doctor to get a commission for writing a particular medicine. But the pharma companies have found ways to bypass that, right? So you kind of correlate that saying that, hey, guess what? It's a very similar scenario in the real estate where a referral cannot be given a commission because it's kind of illegal when you look at it from a particular lens. But when you look at it from this lens, which is already in practice in the medical industry, it becomes valid and very, very legal. So that's where you use metaphors, and that's a powerful storytelling tool. Metaphors saying that what could be successful there is something that I could make it successful here. So that will kind of reduce this question by almost 80%. And then maybe as you go along and you kind of get some cases, it will help you. That's one way I would do that, Joseph. Yeah.
Thank you. That's great.
Welcome. Thank you.
I have a question, Pradeep.
Yes, Pradeep.
If you tell stories in each and every slide, wouldn't it make them bit boring or something? Too much of stories?
Right.
Is there any limit
So
to
let
that
me
story?
let me rephrase this, and I'm glad you asked this question, Pradeep, because many people think that storytelling is telling stories. Storytelling in business is not telling stories. It is using the elements of storytelling in my pitch deck, right? So I just finished a session around half an hour ago with a group of IIM Bangalore students, and there I told them that each slide can have one element of storytelling. For example, the first slide that you have, like the one-liner, can have a metaphor. That's all. A metaphor is an element of storytelling. It's not the entire story, right? When you
All right.
bring to the problem statement, put the problem statement for one person. You may be a B2B company. You may be solving something for a large corporate. But even in that large corporate, there will be one person who's losing his or her sleep because of that problem, right? So you
Yeah.
bring that person into the conversation saying that, hey, meet Joseph Baliva. Joseph is the CEO of XYZ company. And one of the biggest worries for Joseph is legal cases. There are hundreds of Josephs who are struggling with this. I have partnered with Arjun Bala to solve this. Now, people go through the pain of Joseph. That's an element of storytelling and not story. So don't tell stories, use those elements. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Freedom, I think I'm done with questions. So I hand over and I think let's move forward to hearing from Arjun and Rajnish.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Pradeep, and thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
the
Pradeep. That was lovely. Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, Girish.
Yeah. Arjun, over to you.
Great. Hey, that's a tough act to follow up on, right? He made it really interesting. So I'm gonna try to keep you guys, the guys who are from India, awake and engaged. I think all of you, you know about Shark Tank, right? And I actually took a screenshot of this particular pitch when the investors asked the startup, "Have you got a patent for this?" And the entrepreneur was kind of clueless about it and he didn't have an answer. And see the expression on the shark's face. So I just had to grab that. And the key takeaway from this is that patents are really important, right, for startups, especially those who are raising money. Um, so I know all of you are trying to do something that's adding a lot of value to your customers, your stakeholders, your investors, and you're trying to generate wealth, right, for all of these people, especially yourself, I'm sure, but for everyone, including your investors. But what is really wealth? I mean, of course, you are creating value, that you are trying to do something for your customer, for society, change the world. But then until you have leverage or control over that, right? Over the value that you create, uh, anyone can monetize that. And maybe you may not have the right business model, or you may not be able to make money for it or generate wealth from it, right? So uh, protecting the value that you create is what intellectual property rights are all about. Um, okay, now you might like wonder what is IP. You might have heard this phrase IP, and it means intellectual property, but how do you identify what IP is, right? It's all around you. So any of the stuff that helps you or your product, your company stand out from your competitors is most probably related to some form of IP. That's why I call it the X factor. So when you're pitching to your investors, I'm sure the investors are looking for something that's unique, right? Something that stands out. So typically, the first thing we'll hear about is your company's name, your product's name, the brand, the identity. That is something that is a form of IP which is protected by a trademark, which is an intellectual property right. And the next thing would be your product itself, which would be if there's something that's an improvement over the existing technology, and it has an enhanced result, then that is something that may be patentable. So that's the other type of intellectual property right. And if, say, your uniqueness lies in aesthetics, that how your product looks from different angles, from different views, which makes it attractive to your customer, makes it visually appealing, that can be protected by a design patent or a design registration. And of course, there's something that's even more intangible, which is like your knowledge, right? Or your expertise or data that you have, which gives you an edge over your competitors. And that is something that can be protected through, it's called a trade secret. Finally, like all kinds of content that you put out in the world today, in any format, which is creative, whether it's for your marketing, for your storytelling, all of that, whether it's software code, it all can be protected by copyrights. So that's how IP plays a crucial role in differentiating yourself from your competitors. Okay, now again, although the session was talking about how and when and where, I thought it's important to also address why. Um, how does patent and patent strategy, which is more broad than just say patent registration? I'm sure when you think patents, you only think about like registering your patent or you think about suing somebody, right? Only the legal aspects. But hey, have you thought about how you can leverage intellectual property rights to create barriers to entry market? Do you know what kind of risk due to IP that is owned by third parties? And what about differentiation? Say if you have an idea and you think like that in the world, have you validated it? Have you done a search? For example, have you searched patent databases? So when you do this exercise and you go through this process, you actually validate how unique or differentiated your tech, your idea is. And once you go through this process of iterating on it to further differentiate, and then you know that you really have something unique because you have verified it. That's when you can become clearer about your value proposition. And of course, you can generate additional streams of revenue. So, for example, if you have the ability to tap into a specific market, but then you want to tap into other international markets, right? Then if you have patented your invention in other countries, then you can actually license it to other strategic partners and generate royalties from that. And of course, patents are and other forms of intellectual property rights are assets which increase the valuation of your company. Actually, in today's world, you'll hardly find the most wealthy companies. They don't have much of physical assets. So most of the like more than 80% of the value of the biggest companies in terms of market cap comes from intangible assets. And of course, I'm sure a lot of you want to attract the best talent, right? So how do you manage to do that? And how do companies like, say, Texas Instruments or GE or Philips or even Google, how do they attract the best people? Because they have this kind of culture where they, encourage people to innovate. And then when they do, they protect their innovations and they incentivize their team members to go about this process of patenting it. And from the business plan perspective, there's a lot of intelligence that you can gain by looking at patent data, particularly if your invention is in the technology domain. Okay, so I use this word patent, right? What is it? What does it mean? So this is a legal definition, but I'm going to highlight a few points from this. Firstly, patent is a right to exclude other people. It's an exclusive right. And it's granted only for a limited period of time, but it's more than enough. It's 20 years by the government of a specific country. So it's country specific. So which means that if you have applied for and got a patent from one country, it's not applicable in any other country. So it's given to the patentee, which is the person applying for the patent for an invention. And there's a definition of an invention. It's a new product or process which is new, which is not obvious, and which has industrial application. And why does the government grant this patent to this applicant in exchange for full disclosure? So it's quid pro quo. So when you file a patent application, you have to describe how to make, use, and in the industry your invention in sufficient detail, so that a person from the same field of average skill can make and use your invention. And in exchange for this disclosure, the patent office grants you this right for 20 years. And you can exclude people from making, using, or selling your invention in that country. So, for example, you might have, if you patented it, say in one country, you can stop people from selling there. But then, suppose your patent is focusing on the manufacturing process, then you have to patent it in that country where it's being manufactured. Uh, how do we transform, right, your ideas and the value that you have into money at the end of the day to generate an exit, to generate wealth, right? So you have to go through these stages. First thing is to identify what IP you have and then protect it. But sometimes even before that, this you have to figure out what problems to focus on in terms of your research and development efforts. And if you identify the problems that have the biggest market, the biggest opportunities, or what we call as white spaces, and you solve those problems and then gone about protecting them through IP rights, then it's much more likely that you'll be successful in licensing or monetizing your IP. Whereas it's quite possible that what you have solved, it may be great from a technological perspective, but doesn't really have any takers who would commercialize it. So you can actually find out this information by doing research by this process called R&D optimization. Okay, now we'll come to what you can patent, right? And how do you even know whether you have an invention? So you can ask yourself some of these questions. Are you trying to address a long felt need? Is it some solution that does not exist? Are you altering any features? Is your approach unconventional? It's not just routine. Uh, and is it advantageous over existing approaches? Is it commercially valuable? And does it give you competitive edge? So if you've answered yes to these questions, then it's quite likely that you may have an invention and you should go to the next step, which is to evaluate if it's patentable. The criteria that are mostly common across different countries are novelty, non-obviousness, and utility. In addition to that, there is something called subject matter eligibility, which means that there are some types of categories of technology which are not patentable or business, which are not patentable in certain countries. And that may vary from country to country. And the fifth point is about sufficiency of disclosure. So when you file a patent application, you may have a fantastic innovation, but if you haven't described it in sufficient detail to enable this PHOSITA, which is a person having ordinary skill in the art, to make and use your invention, then you may not be eligible to get the patent. The next question is, when should you think about filing a patent? Um, you don't have to actually build the product, you don't have to be ready to launch it, and you don't even necessarily require prototype, but you should have enough detail in your mind and you should be able to describe it in words and in drawings so that a person reading the document can build something without undue experimentation. So when you have even sufficient detail to prototype, you can file up at least what is called as a provisional patent application. Especially if you're planning to go and disclose your invention to people and you don't have control over what happens to that information, then you should file a patent application before you do that. Especially if you're pitching, of course, people might they understand that what you're sharing is confidential, but then a lot of investors typically don't sign an NDA, so there's no guarantees that your information would not be shared with other people. And if you're planning to publish a paper or something like that, then you should definitely file a patent before you do that. If you're exhibiting, you're going to a big conference and you're showing a demo, your people are coming to and they're asking you questions. Hey, how does it work? Right? Then you should file a patent application before that. And of course, if you have people who are working for your company who've contributed to the invention, then you should file a patent and get the rights assigned to the company before they quit. The next question is about, I often hear this like, hey, if I have to disclose my invention, doesn't it totally defeat the purpose of filing a patent? Because I don't want people to know what I'm doing, right? So the answer is that you've got to come up with a strategic approach in terms of what to patent and what to keep trade secret. There is a link between the two, and so the link is that whatever you claim as your exclusive right, you've got to describe how to make and use that part. But there are some things that you might not claim in your patent as your exclusive right. And that is something that you can keep as a trade secret. And even when you claim a particular thing, you have to describe at least one approach to implement it. But then you can again keep other approaches that are known to you secret. So that's how you can manage to have the cake and eat it too. And of course, anything that you disclose in your patent which is not claimed, that's the part of the patent which describes the scope of your rights, right? That is dedicated to the public. Okay, so you've got to know your patent has to be prepared in such a way that it's easy to detect it. Also, if somebody's infringing it, you've got to be able to defend against competitors, reverse engineering, making modifications, and so on. So that's how you have to prepare the patent application so that you can optimize for how much to reveal. Um, I often hear people say, I've got it patented. I have a worldwide patent. I have an international patent, right? There is no such thing. Okay. So patents are country specific. Like I mentioned, each country has its own right to award or deny a patent. Uh, the question that I often hear is, hey, I'm an Indian national or an Indian resident. Can I file a patent in the US? Can I find one in South Africa? Can I find one in South Korea? I mean, anyone can file a patent anywhere in the world. So I was listening to a presentation by a lawyer who was talking about the complexities of buying property in foreign countries, and no such thing as far as patents are concerned. Citizens and foreigners are treated the same by the patent office. So of course, if you want to, have invest in physical assets, it's a lot of challenges. But if you can build a lot of wealth by creating a portfolio of intellectual assets. So, given that there are no such restrictions, right? Why should you restrict yourself to only, the country where you are living in or the country that you're familiar with? So, you've got a patent where there's a maximum value for your invention and there's a market for it, right? So I'm going to take US as an example. It's a very popular patent filing jurisdiction, and there are some reasons for that. Firstly, there is a brand value associated with the US patent, and it helps with the valuation. Once you get a US patent, you can also use the patent prosecution highway to fast track your patent in other countries. US patents give you leverage in negotiations with potential customers, strategic partners, investors. And the US Patent Office has traditionally awarded patents to a wide range of subject matter, which may be otherwise not patentable in other countries. And they have a very strong enforcement system. So you might have heard of stories of universities who've sued large corporations or individual inventors who've sued Microsoft and so on, and who won hundreds of millions or of dollars in damages. So what that means is that it's possible even for startups, small inventors to go and win huge awards through patent litigation, and that's why companies might take your US patent more seriously, and they would rather settle and license than wait to be sued. Okay, so this is the patent process in the US, so it's quite long. I can't cover the whole thing, but broadly, there's this invention disclosure stage where you have to document your idea. Then you've got to, it's a good idea to check if it's patentable or not by doing a search, and then you can go through this process iteratively. And you can also file something called as a provisional patent application. A lot of startups do this, especially before pitching to investors, and at least it gives you a filing date. You can say it's patent pending, and you get a year to file the non-provisional or the complete application. If you fail to file within that year, your patent application is abandoned. And it's not like a lot of people think, oh, I've filed a patent and I've spent time and effort on it and I've spent money on it. So where am I going to get the patent, right? It's not so simple because the patent office has to verify if your invention really is not disclosed in any form, in any country, in any language before your filing date. So it's quite a complex examination process, and you may have to go through multiple rounds of the patent office raising objections and you having to respond to them with your arguments. And at the end of it, there's finally light at the end of the tunnel, and you get your patent. And that's why the patent is so valuable because it goes through a rigorous examination process. That's the difference between a granted patent and a patent pending. A granted patent is what will help you to really monetize license and what people will be concerned about as compared to a patent pending, which may never get issued. A question that I often get is like, can software be patented? And the typical answer that you might hear is like, when you combine software with hardware, it's patentable. And of course, what hardware, right? Is it a general purpose laptop? Is it a tablet? Is it a mobile phone? So it's not really about the hardware as such. It's about the problem that you're trying to solve and the steps or the system components approach that you're taking to solve that problem. So if the problem that you're solving is technical, right? So even if you're say at the end of the day, we all are here to make money, right? So you need to solve a business problem in order to monetize. But at the same time, in order to achieve that business, the solution to that business problem, you may need to innovate in terms of technology as well. And it's the innovation to the technical problem that is patentable, not the high level idea, of solving the business problem. So, for example, if someone tells you, "I have this idea, and I can anyone can book a cab, and the nearest cab will just come to my location. I can track the cab and so on." That is a high level idea, right? But then if you go down to how do you use the satellite data, or how do you optimize the compute on your mobile phone in order to get the real time matching, and how do you use the most efficient algorithms so that you get the most relevant matches in the least amount of time, right? Those are technical problems. So you can't patent like the idea, as few people are talking about, like how you can. I think I heard one of the people here, the entrepreneurs, Joseph here, talk about how there's a platform to get a referral fee, right? So that at a high level is a business idea. But then maybe while implementing the platform, you have to face certain technological hurdles to make this work at scale. And then you came up with some solutions with your technical team to solve those problems. That's the kind of thing that's patentable. So I'm going to just give you some examples. So this one is a more clear-cut example, which is like anomaly detection using sensor data, and clearly here you might use AI or something like that to detect uh, if there's a fault in the equipment, and you can then go and correct it, right? And this can be done automatically just by monitoring the video feed. And this is something that sounds fairly technical, and you can patent it if it satisfies novelty and non-obviousness that I spoke about. But then, how about this? Have you thought, like, can you tell something like predicting whether a person who's using a mobile app for taking a loan on the app, is that user likely to actually apply for that loan or not? This has been patented, and surprisingly, even in a country like India, and we were able to do this. And that's because we had to make some arguments about how this machine learning model, the algorithm, makes it makes it much faster to predict, right, who's going to take the loan as compared to looking at, for example, financial transaction data, which is much more time consuming. So this is also something that could have been that has been patented by us. Okay, so I don't know how much time I have, or should I find
Last 3 minutes, Arjun.
3 minutes? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll just show this slide. So you've all heard about the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats framework, right? So applying it to the context of IP, any IP that you need to monitor your business, right? Uh, and you also happen to own it, that becomes your strength. But on the other hand, if you really need some access to IP in order to operate in a particular business, and you don't own it, that could be your weakness. And in case that IP that you need and that you don't own happens to be owned by one of your direct competitors, they could actually threaten, try to shut you down, and that becomes a threat. And on the other hand, like if you say haven't done, or you're fairly at an early stage, and then you just try to look around and see what people have done and identify where the gaps are, the kind of problems that people haven't solved yet, which have huge opportunity in the future. It is something that can be a opportunity. And in terms of apart from protecting your own IP, you also need to do a search, which is called a freedom to operate search. And that is in order to see, to validate if your product, when you launch in a particular country, is infringing anybody else's patents. And if you find this out then early stage, and then you work around it and ensure that when you before you launch, you don't infringe on those patents, then you are saving a lot of risk for yourself and your investors, which is why a lot of investors engage attorneys like us to do patent due diligence before making an investment, right? So here are something you should try to avoid, like delaying your filing too much, infringing other people's patents when you launch, not thinking international, filing, thinking about foreign filing too late by the time you lose the date, and getting into, deals where you think you own the IP, but then there are other people who have rights over it, so it becomes a dispute later, and yeah, not ensuring the IP is owned before inventors quit. So these are the kind of things that investors look at when they do a due diligence from an IP perspective. How unique is your technology? Are you infringing third-party IP? Is your IP that you own, is it even valid? Is it owned by you? Right? And I haven't spoken about brands and trademarks today, just focused on patents, but there's a lot of due diligence which is to be done around that as well. So with that, I believe I'm borrowing a tagline from an Indian consumer electronics brand. I believe a patent is a competitor's envy, but it's the inventor's pride. And this is a little bit about us, my company. So we've got over 200 US patents and 400 Indian patents at a success rate of over 90%. And over to you if you have any questions here. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Arjun. We'll open the floor to questions now. Any questions for Arjun?
Hello, sir. I'm Abhishek, and I'm running a clean tech startup. In my startup, we recycle the waste. So, is there any scope of getting it patent? Like, it is a practice that has been done in rural areas of coastal regions, but we are doing it in landlocked state. So, is there any scope to get it patent? And we collect the waste from street vendors, work with the in collaboration of local body too. Thank you.
Right. So, have you done any research in terms of how you maybe process the waste or how you tackle certain types of waste, which is other people don't tackle? So you can ask yourself some of those questions that I showed in that slide, right? Let me just quickly show that slide again. And yeah. Are you trying to address a long-felt need? Is your solution new? I mean, if you have you done any search to see if other people are taking a similar approach? Have you altered some steps which other people are doing? You've removed them, or you've added something new? Is your approach similar to what people in the industry are doing, or is it unconventional, right? And are you getting some advantages over the others, and it's also giving you a competitive advantage? So these are some of the questions you could ask yourself. And of course, the emphasis when it comes to patents is more on either the process, or like it could be process of treatment of the waste, or it could be delivery, maybe how you're using some, robots or mechanical, or automotive, those kind of things. There could be innovations in all these aspects. And you
Okay.
can actually do a search and you can find out that in your domain, what kind of technologies people have come up with and they have patented. That will give you some ideas of what you can work on, even if you don't have something right away.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions?
Just curious, any sectors or startup verticals where you see this more number of patents filed in India recently? I mean, I take it as a deep tech. We think, okay, there is an opportunity to file. What are the top three sectors that you see?
I mean, I can tell you based on what I come across as someone who's like, working very closely with the startup ecosystems in Bangalore and Hyderabad and cities like that. So I'm seeing a lot of buzz around AI, and AI
Okay.
could be applied in different industries, like it could be healthcare or it could be, retail, like that. So these are some. Apart from that, we've seen a lot of patent filings among semiconductor startups, Fabless. Uh, those are the ones that are already acquainted with how important patents are, right? Because there are many companies that have set up R&D centers. People who have come out from those companies, they know that the importance of patents right from day one. But apart from that, there's also drones and robotics, and we see a lot of space and defense tech, and
Okay.
they are filing a lot of patents. And just some examples, yeah, for you. But then it's not just restricted to this. So I've even seen food and beverage startups filing patents
Okay.
filed by companies that are working on, uh, skincare formulations,
Mhm.
or yeah. So it's really cuts across. As long as you're investing in doing some scientific research, you're hiring people with advanced technical degrees. It's you're putting in some investment there, then you might have something that's worth patenting.
Okay. That helps. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Arjun. That was a lovely session, really informative. Last speaker, Rajesh, moving on to you. The stage is all yours.
So, hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, as per the jurisdictions. So, I'll try to keep it short. And for India, those who are attending, it's fairly late. So I'll be very short and quick on that. So let me share my presentation. Yeah, just just hold. Just a second.
Yeah, take your time. Meanwhile, Arjun, if you want to drop your contact information and the company information in the chat, maybe, because I think the last slide was not entirely visible, in case people
Yeah,
want to
sure.
get in touch with you. Yeah.
So I believe the presentation is now visible.
Not yet.
Not yet. Just sure. Is it now visible?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry for this little bit of glitch. So, okay. So the topic given to me, or let's say was handed over to me, was towards cross-border structures in precise terms. So when I will be discussing this cross-border structures, idea is to focus on only few jurisdictions, what Indian founders we have seen in our examples. So now, before we move, this is the basic way I would prefer to cover. is what shapes the cross-border play. That means the decisions which are the underlying thoughts before you decide on any kind of cross-border structures. Then what are the kinds of cross-border structures? What's the holdco, subco, how they are being designed and played? How do you deal with your investors? And the most famous topic or most presently in debate or discussion is about flipping and reverse flipping under Indian context. So now, what actually shapes the cross-border play? Now, let's say if you are an Indian, so India and other jurisdiction, probably this discussion is more focused around that. But please take it, if you are not from any of these jurisdictions, that one of the most important thing which every founder starts thinking is about what is the ease of doing business in their particular jurisdiction. So let's say you are an Indian founder, want to set up a company in India. Probably the question is as easy as which state I should set up, because registrar of companies efficiency to deal with the subject is also important when you run an organization. So having a company in somewhere, let's say in Northeast versus having a company in Gujarat versus having a company in Karnataka or Hyderabad, probably you will might find some difference. So domicile is an important part. Where do you set up and why are you looking at the cross border? Under Indian context, primarily it is more like, I would say that it is just because someone else has done. There is lot many questions come to us that he has set up a company in Delaware. It has just got opened in 2 days. Why it is taking 30 days in India? So, well, each one has its own pros and cons. But the point is, if someone has gone to Delaware, please try to understand what's the basic motive for that particular move. It is not necessarily just that because an incorporation gets faster, I will choose jurisdictions which are way far from my, let's say, capability or reach even. The second is, of course, client and investors. So let's say if you are building a product or if you are a SaaS, a company into SaaS, and where are your major clients or customers? So that also makes a lot of time the key factor, whether you should have directly an US company to start with, or a company based in Singapore, or a company based in Dubai, or any other jurisdiction for that matter. But as long as, let's say, food and beverages, you are into somewhere textile industry and your primary market is going to be India, then you should think hard and question yourself that what exact benefit I'm going to achieve if I have a cross-border setup. So whenever we get these questions, we ask the typical question to our startup friends are, why is it important that you are thinking of USA and or Singapore and not India? What's the point? Taxes, of course, people do crib about taxes. India is a very highly taxed country. You have GST, you have income tax and whatnot. But then I also give them an example that fair enough. Dubai has probably a very low taxation, zero taxation on personal level, corporate taxation as low as 9%. But on that other context, go to Germany, probably you will find 60% kind of a taxation structure. Or Europe is a highly taxed jurisdiction. So, but have that restricted people from, let's say, those European jurisdictions not to start companies in their own countries? So only tax, again, does not make a sense to have a cross-border structure, because sooner or later, across the world, governments are working together quite in extensive manner to see that corporates do not or are not able to utilize the tax arbitrage which is available across jurisdictions. And the fourth most funny part is we don't know things we don't know. A lot of time the founder's girlfriend is in US and therefore there is an interest to set up a company in US. It's going to be as simple as that. So there are things we don't know, but again, the question is there has to be something very seriously thought through as to why somebody is looking to set up or thinking of creating a cross-border structure. Now moving on to what are the kinds of structures available or people do that. So very standard, you you can have a local holding company. When I say local in Indian context, Indian company becomes the holding company, and then you set up a foreign subsidiary company. Very straightforward, plain vanilla. The reverse is slightly tricky, where you first go and set up a foreign holdco, and then you set up an Indian subsidiary company. This is where most questions are, and this is which intrigues most startup founders. But there is something called a group structure, where actually nobody owns more than 51% in any of the group structures. So you happen to hold 20% in a US company. Your US company then again goes and sets up a company in Dubai. That company again counter invests back in India in another setup. And you again go and take 30% out there. So a structure which is loosely bound, but again, through a common group or control, this structure also is a manageable structure. Now, there is other kind of structure which is also found very common is we create two identical companies with mirror shareholding. So we call it standalones with mirror holding structure. Whereas let's say your startup is doing good, you've been able to raise money, certain angel rounds, maybe to a certain larger rounds also, and thereafter with good evaluation, with a proper strategic thought, you decided to create a company in US because now you wish to expand globally. Now, because of FEMA and other restrictions, there are challenges to get these approvals or get the company set up and operational in. So there is time lag, let's put it that way. And therefore, a lot of times what happens, you go and set up a company with the similar cap table structure in USA and later work on through the swap or any other route to get the structure legally correct or the way you wish to achieve. And multi-jurisdiction sandwich models, I think you might have heard, or if you read around or if you do Google, you will find very classic examples of how Apple was able to not pay taxes by creating a Dutch Irish sandwich model, which is purely designed to handle the taxation, as well as you move the entire intellectual property into a separate holdco, and then you work through the licensing arrangement. Now, these are very, very complex, has done after years of research and tax experts advisory. So this is something, again, and even though these were successful for 10 years, 15 years, all governments have come together, and most of these cases, sandwich models are now no more found, or it's getting really complex to deal with them. So now, holdco subco play. Let's say things what should decide where you could have a holdco, where you could have a subsidiary company, or you can play with the independent corporate structure also. So the first is going back to my example, just because somebody else has set up a company in Delaware or Singapore, I think the situation, the industry, the support every person has in this world, and especially when you look for cross-border structures, you need to have a good control or good idea about how the regulatory system operates, or at least you should have the capacity to engage with good quality advisors over there. That's a primary thing. Just because you might have, so your friend has studied in USA does not give you, even though people say it's very easy, laws are very straightforward. I think lawyers who deal with American transaction documents would differ to a great extent on that side. So laws are complex. No particular jurisdiction's law are easy once you get into the nitty-gritties of that. So just do not follow what the next door founder has done. You should have your own reasons, and you should have own basis before you move into this cross-structure discussions. Now, what is your market? And more than market, what's the network you have in that particular jurisdiction? So it's not only about the legal support what you need good tax support. Plus, if there is no market for you in that particular jurisdiction, a cross-border structure doesn't work in that space. So are they really your market? You can get high-value customers, then it makes sense. Third part is where taxation comes into a play. So two famous terms are written over there. One is a which are set up by resident to not set up any more subsidiaries anywhere. You should be you are allowed only to invest in an operational company. You are not allowed to create a holdco structure. That means investment company. So the challenge is people when go through ODI, initially the company was operational, no challenges. But when you, after some time, you decide to get a subsidiary down, that's where you will go and hit the FDI wall with RBI. So RBI would not allow you to do that. And if you happen to do that, at any point of time, if this comes out, RBI wants you to unwind that situation. So in a business, while unwinding from a regulatory standpoint looks easy for regulators, but it's extremely complex for companies to unwind from a position which is already taken. So this cross border becomes very, very important. There are ways and means in which companies are doing it, but they are all legitimate structures. There are ways which it can be structured. But again, so cross-border regulatory system play is one of the important where you should take holdco, where you should set up subco. Let's say you can have an holdco in India and holdco invest and sets up a subsidiary in India under the ODI route. This is a very simple route, very easy. While people complain that you do not find high quality investors, a deep tech or an AI based startups have higher, let's say, salability or higher attraction among investors in US or other developed markets. Yes, I do agree that every market has its own strength and weaknesses. But again, there are companies which are still investing in India. And presently, we have seen where, let's say, resident Indians who have worked in Singapore or other jurisdictions, now they are non-resident by definition, but they still hold the Indian passports. They have set up companies in Singapore and where Indian VC funds are interested. And the first ask is for them to re-domicile back in India. Because even though Indian VC funds are allowed to invest outside India, they come into a very different route where it's first come, first serve basis. So RBI opens a window by which every VC, whoever applies first, gets a quota to invest abroad. So while your VC might be very interested, probably by 6 months in any financial year, this quota gets over. And therefore, even though the VC is interested in investing, he finds this RBI, this quota system very difficult. And therefore, quite a lot of, we have seen investors have insisted that the Singapore company to be set up, they should set up another company in India, which will become the holdco, and later they will structure on the Singapore side. Now we come to the last part of it, which is the most interesting, or this one about flipping and reverse flipping. So people who are tracking Indian startup system, so you might have heard recent stories of, let's say, Grow or Razorpay moving back to India. So Ghar Wapsi is what newspapers kept on talking. Both these companies, or probably Razorpay was first set up in Bangalore, then they set up their holdco structure in USA, and for the purpose of listing or to attract to get entry into Indian capital market, they have moved back their headquarters to India. Grow's story, what I have read or what I have followed, is probably because Y Combinator was an investor in them. They had to set up a company in USA. And I think because in payment and financial structures, and they also wanted to have a particular IPO, and therefore they have also moved back. And both these news have followed with a very interesting observation of how both companies were to pay taxes in few hundred to, let's say, in thousands crores. So the point is why there is a reason of that kind where taxation comes in, and what exactly flipping and reverse flipping. So what exactly that means? So flipping means, in very simple terms, no legal definition, but what it is understood that founders have set up an Indian company, they've been operational, and because of, let's say, any particular strategic reason, they would like to get the company to attract investment, and they go and set up a holdco in USA or any other jurisdiction. And India company becomes the subsidiary of that. This is what flipping means. Reverse flipping is exactly opposite, where US Holdco becomes the subsidiary company of India Holdco. So you flip the structure. That is why it is known as uh, reverse flipping. So first of all, why do you want to flip it? Again, the same question is it a need or is it a want? I just want to have an US Holdco for my India operations. I would classify is it that I want rather than I need. Because for certain companies, yes, there is a need, because let's say at a cutting edge AI companies probably will find it will need a longer time to attract large amount of investment in India, whereas the possibility of getting the similar large ticket investment in US is bit easier. I shouldn't say that it is always easier, but yes, the acceptance is much higher on that side. Now, investors also play a very key role. So let's say it's very famous for Y Combinators that if they have to invest, you need to have an US company. It's as simple as that. While they have invested in non-US companies also, but the numbers are very, very few and less. Now, the question of strategic control and decision making also plays, because even though you have flipped and you still continue to sit in India or let's say your local jurisdictions, the taxation related structures will start coming to bite. The poem, the boy test, the transfer pricing, everything gets activated, and therefore the very advantage of tax gets lost out. Now, returning home, again, what's the need? So, in my two examples, probably the need is both are into payment and financial systems, where RBI has a requirement of data localization. Plus, both these companies wanted to take advantage of the current IPO boom in India, and their primary market is India. So, Razorpay is a pretty large fintech player in India. Grow also is somebody who is into a trading and broking platform, completely dependent on BSCs and NSE structure. So typically your all clientele, your market is in India, while they have been able to raise substantial capital outside India. So the need to return home is again very, very strategic and well planned. And what's the timing and when should you do that? Again, it is very much on market conditions. Most likely these IPOs are one of the key reasons why they are coming in. Let's say for an example, how good Indian capital market is presently performing is that LG happened to list its Indian subsidiary, and on the day of its issue getting listed, the subsidiary's value was bigger than the South Korean, its own parent. So imagine an Indian LG having more market valuation than LG South Korea. So again, the timing is very important. Indian markets do fluctuate from one place to other, but again, it's been on a nice run for last few years. So that's you would hear much more this flip and reverse flip stories. I think I have almost done with, and I think probably we am close to my timing also.
Yeah.
So this is the last slide on which I would say. So taking from our first speakers this one. So one simple story, while flipping may look like a movie plot twist, but the real climax is in the tax chapter, which you get to know a bit later. You don't get to hear that when you actually flip it. This starts biting you slowly and gradually. So therefore, plan your sequel before you roll the credits. So typically when you flip, also think through this entire plan that you might have to reflip it. And if that happens, what are the things you need to plan it better? So that's the end of that's the last slide. So I think I'm open for questions. Here are my details. Anybody wish to have any other?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rajneesh. We'll now open the floor for questions.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was just saying thank you. We'll now open up the floor for some questions.
Sure.
Yeah. So any questions for Rajneesh?
You can stop share also, Rajneesh.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yes, please.
Rajneesh,
Any
maybe
questions?
I'll ask with the flipping that happens, right? With the valuation going
Yeah.
up, the cost of flipping also goes up.
Yes.
Okay.
So flipping would always involve, let's say, share swaps are a very standard model of flipping where, let's say you as a founder, you hold, let's say, the majority shares of your own company, and now you wish to move your shareholding to US company. So what will you do? Your shares in Indian company would get swapped against foreign company issuing its new shares to you. So it's a two-legged transaction. At one-legged, actually it is a sale. It's a transfer of unit. So the more valuation, the more taxation, because you will end up having more capital gains. And companies lose a lot of tax benefits of, let's say, your accrued losses and other things if your merger does not fit into certain terms and conditions. So both these things get hit. But again, in reverse flipping, what we are seeing is, let's say, 1,200 crore worth of tax outgo. These companies are very well funded and they have thought through all these tax risks. And those investors are also willing to take that, because even after paying that kind of a tax, the gain from Indian market is much, much higher. So people would rather use that rather than lose that opportunity.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? No? Yeah, who's Zoom user, by the way? There's a Zoom user
I think
who's
that's Sagar Madhwani. I just made sure it was him.
Sagar Madhwani.
Yeah,
Okay.
he registered.
Yeah, hi, Sagar. Okay. Fine. I think we can conclude. Yeah. Any last comments, Vinay?
I'm sorry, I've been on mute. Girish, wonderful presentations. Absolutely, I mean, enthralling, I must say. And even the order in which they were done was perfect. You start with storytelling and end with structuring. I'm particularly enamored by structuring, especially because I see potential for increased valuations, especially when you're doing structuring, which is going to help get into a better valuation zone, And I know we did not talk about the topic, but that's of particular interest, especially when we are talking about cross-border structures, with a view to getting better returns for the shareholders. But yeah, all three of them absolutely enthralling.
Yeah, thanks everyone, and thanks for giving us your time late in the evening. In fact, our US folks seem to have felt sleepy. Yeah, but thanks everyone again. Thanks Rajneesh, Arjun, and Pradeep for a wonderful presentation. We really enjoyed it, and I've got the recording also, so we'll share it with the folks who had requested for the same. Yeah, we can close, Preetham. Anything else to add?
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Bye-bye.